My name is Gary B., and this is the message for November 2025. It's been a while since I recorded. I've been a little busy. Not in a bad way, just things get busy, and then I don't always feel like coming in here and recording. But a lot has happened, and I feel open and ready to do this. So I titled this Living in the Space in Between. I went to a meditation meeting yesterday morning, and the meditation leader was talking about learning to use pause and about how we can choose to respond rather than react to stimuli in our environment, and how you can have that space and that pause, and that's where the magic happens. And for me in meditation, especially when I do breath work, that space is at the very top of the breath and at the bottom of the breath. And so, when you breathe in, there's a slight pause at the top before you exhale. And then when you fully exhale, there's a space at the bottom before you inhale. And in my meditation practice, when I'm specifically working on breath work, that's what I focus on. And it helps me be aware. And I like to live in those spaces if I can. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. And my meditation practice has made it easier to do that. And I think that that's where there's a little bit of magic, and that it helps me to be present. And one of those ways that came true this particular week, it showed up. If you've listened to my other messages, you know that I'm in therapy, and that is basically for abuse, which is trauma. And so sometimes I have trauma responses. And typically, it's really hard for me to recover from those. But this week, I was able to handle one of those. And it was mainly because of my meditation practice and also my step work I've done. So I'm a sales engineer, and I quote professional services for clients. I had quoted someone an upgrade of their phone system, and they had approved that quote, and I missed the approval. And so a month and a half later, they were following up to see why an engineer hasn't done their upgrade yet. And someone at work was like, "Hey, were you going to assign this?" And I about freaked out because I don't like to make mistakes. One of the odd character defects is what we call them in the program, but I like to call them assets taken to the extreme, is perfection, and that I cannot make a mistake. Because where I grew up, if you made a mistake, you got punished. And so I got this awful sinking feeling in the middle of my body, basically in my stomach. And then, the negative thought loops started to come, and I started beating myself up like, see, you can't do anything right, and they're going to fire you, and you're no good. And while that was all happening, there was a little tiny space there, because I do practice meditation on a regular basis. And in that space, I caught myself like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then I used step 10, which is continued to take personal inventory, and where we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And I said, let's just look at the facts. So I kind of set my panic aside for a minute, and I just went through and did the research. And I went back and looked at the quote. I looked at when it was done. I looked at when it was approved. And so, yes, that's what I did. And then I went to my co-employee. I'm like, nope, I missed this. I will take care of it. I found an engineer to do the upgrade. I apologized to the client. I got the engineer to the client, and then I apologized to the salesperson. So in that space, that helped me to feel better. Now, that didn't mean that yucky feeling inside of me went away, because it is a trauma response. And for those of you out there that have been through any amount of trauma, you know what I'm talking about, and it kind of sticks around. But there is a woman that I work with who is wonderful, and she and I commiserate together when we get stressed out. And so I just talk to her about it. And she has missed stuff too. And, she always reminds me to be gentle with myself. And let's learn from this. So I set up a quick little half-hour meeting with her, and she showed me some ways that she double-checks things to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. And today I put those things in place. I put rules in my Outlook so that I can, as things get approved, they will go into one folder so I won't miss them, and I can see them, and I can learn from my mistakes. And that's the growth. But the biggest part of that was I had that pause because of practicing meditation and using therapy tools and using program. And so for any of you out there that are thinking about adding meditation to your life, these are the subtle ways that it can show up when we practice it on a regular basis. Another thing that I've been starting to do is use yoga nidra at night. That's spelled Nidra, I think. I might have to look it up on my phone. But from Insight Timer, I've been listening to yoga nidra at night, and what I'm learning is that yoga nidra is the space between being awake and being asleep. And again, it's a space in between. And so far, I've not been able to stay awake through a 30-minute yoga nidra guided meditation. I always fall asleep. As soon as they start doing the breathing, I'm out. But I still heard it, and so subconsciously it was there. I like to use sleep meditations at night. They help relax me, and they help me to fall asleep. And I think, especially the binaural beats and certain frequencies, actually help me sleep deeper. I think that they help me to get in a more relaxed state and let go of any kind of stressful thoughts that I have right before I go to sleep. And I just find I have better sleep. I also led a mindfulness workshop. I volunteer at a local rehab. I go once a month when I can make it, and I lead a mindfulness workshop. And usually that is me talking to them about mindfulness, like what are some ways that you can be mindful, especially because most of these people are newly sober or have newly come back to be sober inside of this rehab. And there are ways, like as you're walking through the hallway, pay attention to your steps. I always use driving. When I drive, I try and be very aware and present of what's going on. And then I tell my story, which I haven't told my story on here yet. I'm getting ready to do that. I do a condensed version of it. It's like 12 or 15 minutes, and tell my sober story. And then I lead a meditation. And we did the beach yesterday. And it was really nice. This female in the front row had a battery operated fan because she was warm, and she set it in front of her. And when we got done, the people around her said that they could feel that breeze. And so when I was describing to them to imagine yourself sitting on the beach facing the ocean and that there's a gentle breeze, they actually could feel the breeze, and it helped them get to that place. But I was describing to them that using meditation and using visualization, you can literally go anywhere you want without drugs or alcohol and without taking a trip. Now, because I practice meditation on a regular basis, I can drop into that meditative state fairly quickly, like usually in 3 to 5 minutes, easy, just by doing some breathing. And then, I can start a visualization, anything that I want. One of my favorites is to imagine like energy flowing through me, especially healing energy. And if I have any place, if I do a quick body scan and like my shoulder's been bugging me because my rotator cuff gets irritated. I don't know why. I think it's because I use the mouse too much at work. But I send like healing energy there and it helps. But that workshop went really well. And I had 2 or 3 people come up afterwards and thank me for doing it. And each month when I go, I'm a little nervous as I'm driving up there, and I don't always feel like I want to do it. And then every time I leave, I feel just amazing that I did it. And it still surprises me to this day how much I get out of leading a meditation and how much I get out of sharing that with someone else and sharing that experience with someone else. And feeling those people drop into a meditative state and then guiding them through that and listening to them breathe. And again, in the space in between where it's quiet and all we heard was the ocean sounds because that's what I played in the background. But I could feel them breathe. And that's just incredible to me. Another thing that I've been doing is helping my uncle. He has Lou Gehrig's, which is not a fun way. It's not a fun disease. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I spent a week and a half up there helping take care of him. And at that point, he could still talk. What Lou Gehrig's does is it makes it so that your muscles stop responding to the impulses that are sent to it. So like he was saying, it was getting harder and harder for him to do fine motor control. And he said on a scan when he thinks to contract, like if you go to make a fist, the muscles in your arms on the scan, normally they would all light up because, in your brain, you think make a fist. And so your muscles react and they pull your fingers together and put your thumb in front. And your arm muscles, your forearm muscles, and your biceps help contract those muscles. So they would light up on a scan. Whereas when he does that, he said it looks like teardrops in the muscle because it's only lighting up about a third of those fibers. And so he can't grip fully. And that has to be so frustrating. He is in his late 70s and mentally he is all there, but his body is just literally falling apart around him. And eventually he'll get to the point where he can't swallow, and then he'll get to the point where he can't breathe. And then he will die. And so I spent a week looking at aging and death in the face. Now, this is a loved one of mine. It's my stepfamily, actually. It's my stepfather's brother. But they have always treated me like I am family to them. And they've always loved and supported me. And it felt good to give back. Now, unfortunately, the first couple of days, I only focused on how I felt, which is very selfish. Like, I was just incredibly sad. And it was hard. It was hard to be there and be present for him. And I had gone for a walk. He's got a dog. Sophie is amazing. And also fairly old. I want to say she's 14 or 15. And she just stays by his side. And she is going to be beside herself when he's no longer there. But I took her for a walk, and I started thinking about what it was like from his point of view instead of my point of view. And I started thinking about what it would be like to be mentally acute inside of your body, but as you're sending it these signals, it's not doing what it normally used to do, and how frustrating that would be, and that there isn't a darn thing you can do about it. And then I started to have some compassion and empathy for him, and also some acceptance. I felt some peace in my heart about what's going to happen with him. And then I was able to be of more service to him. And so, I helped cook. I made him meals. We sat and watched TV together. If he needed anything, I would help him. One of the things about him that I really like is he's very, very particular, and I don't mind that. Some people call that OCD, and I have a little bit of that too. And so one thing I was able to do was to clean his house and get some things in order. Having home health care come in on a regular basis, they don't know the way he likes things. They just do the best they can. And there's 2 or 3 different people that come through, and everyone does it slightly differently. And so, we spend an afternoon like, where do you want this? Where can I put that? Where do you want this? That kind of thing. And I think he really appreciated that I just neatened things up the way that he wanted them done. Because at that point, he spent most of his day in the living room. We also went for several walks. He's got a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair, which, by the way, they go very fast. If he wanted to make it go fast, he could. And we went for this very long walk, and it was just really nice. It was me and him and the dog, and it was nice to get outside and get some air and take him around. And so the other thing that it did was it provided some perspective. Like, a lot of the little stuff day to day that normally would get under my skin didn't seem so important anymore. And the things that matter to me are more about my relationships with others, including my partner and my friends. And I reached out to a lot of people while I was there. And the gratitude that I feel for what I have, because we don't know day to day. We don't know when we're not going to be here anymore. And I was talking to my dad about this, my stepfather, that it's almost worse that we know that that's coming. But in a way, it's also comforting. But I think it's easier to deal with, they had a heart attack and died, and it's sudden, and then you can deal with the grief, as opposed to watching someone slowly fade away and get worse and worse. I will be going up there this weekend to visit him. My other uncles, his brothers, keep me informed of what's going on. And I will try and show up and be present and be helpful and be of service to the best of my ability. But I am going to sit and spend some time with him. And unfortunately, he can't talk anymore. And I'm sure he has a lot to say. He's an intellectual person. And it's got to be really, really frustrating to sit there inside of that body and you can't do anything but look. And I've been trying to think of ways that I can help him communicate, but I haven't come up with too much yet. We'll see when I'm there. I guess they gave him like a sheet and he can point to letters or point to words on it. So we'll see. And while that is extremely sad for me, I've reached a level of acceptance. I've always kind of accepted that, one of the things that we do know in this world is eventually we're going to die. And a lot of people are afraid of death. And while I don't want to die, I don't know that I'm afraid of it. I don't want it to happen, but I don't know how to describe that other than, I've accepted that at some point I'm going to die. And living through those 8 years of abuse was just awful. And I don't know if I'm sure that there's things out there that would be more awful than that, but life in general for me is really good, and it will never be like that. And so it kind of skewed my perception of death and life. And so just spending some time with my uncle has really put some things into perspective and kind of changed some of my priorities for the better. I don't hesitate to give someone a hug. I don't hesitate to tell someone how I really feel about them. I don't hesitate to tell someone I love them. I take the time to give someone a hug. I take the time at work to say thank you, because we never know how much time we have. Anyway, another thing that I did in October was I went to a retreat, and while I was there, it was a sober retreat. It's an LGBT sober retreat. One of the ones that I really like. And while I was there, I got voluntold that I'm going to be the committee chair for next year. So I am the committee chair. Thankfully, they've been doing it over 40 years now, so it kind of like runs itself. But it's at a special place. And this is my third or fourth year going. And it was really nice. But I also led a workshop there, and we did 6 and 7. I did surrender to let go. It was step 3, 6, and 7. And we used a little bit of step 11 as well. So 11 is sought through prayer and meditation, prove our conscious contact with God as we understood him. And that's what we did. And so we said the 6-step prayer, and I had them do a meditation afterwards, and imagine that inside you have a safe inside you have a quiet, still pool, and you drop in a question. I started with, you are safe. And the question was, what do you want to let go of? And then we went around the circle and passed around an object. And I had them all share what they wanted to let go of. And then I had them share a gift. So if someone had heard someone share something you want to let go of and you had experience with that, you could share that, or you could give a gift to yourself. And so what I wanted to let go of was that the belief that I'm not a good person, because I know I am a good person. And so what I wanted to let go of was the belief that I am not a good person. And my gift would be that I know I am a good person. And so we went back around the circle and everyone shared their gift. And then we said the 7-step prayer. And afterwards, we meditated again. And once I got them kind of in that meditative state, we used the mantra, "We are ready to let go." And in that, I had them think about what they wanted to surrender and let go of. And I haven't quite come up with a full meditation of this. I think I've written it out and I've done it once live. It's a shorter meditation. I haven't recorded it yet, but I will. And this went over really, really well. And the interesting story about this is that my home group, I was there Friday. For those of you not in recovery, a home group is a meeting that you go to on a regular basis that you become I'm using air quotes, a member of. You call it your home group, and you do that because it keeps you accountable. So you show up week after week after week, and you really get to know the people that are there, and they will hold you accountable and you hold them accountable. And that helps keep me sober. But I had people that had gone to this retreat that live in another city that showed up for our meeting. And one of them came up and talked to me and told me how much my workshop and the meditations that we did were helpful to him, and that he had been listening to this particular channel and he really enjoyed my meditations. And that's the other thing that I need to remember, is that you never know where the ripples in the pond will go. We never know what a smile or holding the door open or saying thank you or leading a workshop or whatever we can do to be nice to other people on this planet. We never know how that's going to affect others and who it's going to affect. And 90% of the time, we'll never know. I believe they call it the butterfly effect. But I always like to imagine it as like a pond, and then you take a rock or a pebble or whatever you want to call it, and when you throw that in the water, it sinks, but then there's all those ripples, and the ripples go out and out and out and out, basically into infinity. But we never know what we do and who that's going to affect and how it might help somebody. And those are the things that motivate me, and they motivate me to continue to do this. Another thing that I did was the meditation, quote unquote, classes that I do, which I do at a local studio here twice a month. I did a chakra healing one, and I had only 2 people sign up, one of which has a lot of anxiety. He said he regularly wakes up in the morning and he's anxious, and that's just a normal state for him, which I think sounds horrible, but it's something he works at, and that's just the way he is. And then the other person that was there hadn't really meditated before. And we did this chakra healing where I went through, it's the similar one to the one I've recorded on here. We start our root chakra and go up through every single chakra all the way to the crown. And the feedback I got from the guy that was anxious said that for the next 3 days, he was not anxious. He said when he woke up in the morning that he didn't have anxiety. And those are just some of the benefits. Now, the other guy that hadn't meditated much before, that meditation live was 40 minutes. In so much so that I keep a clock near me so I can keep track of the time. And we were just rolling along with all the different chakras, and the energy was really good and they were really into it. And then I looked over the clock and we were 35 minutes in, and I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to bring these people back. Like, I have to get them back out of this state. bring them back into the room because I didn't want to do it too fast. And so I gently guided them back. But it was one of those things when you first start, you think like, this won't take that long. And sometimes when I'm leading a meditation, things I think are, 10 minutes long or like 3 minutes. And I try and be wary of the time, which is why I use a clock. But it was funny because I just lost all track of time. I was like, wow, 30 minutes just went by. But he said that he was resistant at first and, kind of was like, and he was all over the place. But then he said when I started describing the chakras and the colors, he could focus in on that. And that was very helpful to him. And he was even amazed that it was 40 minutes long. And so it was helpful to him as well. I just enjoy being in that studio. I like being in that space. It has really good juju. I don't know any other word for that other than juju. A lot of healing gets done in that space, and there's remnants of that energy. And then, as I'm in there and I spend some time in there, which I take a good 15 minutes before people show up so I can get in that space and kind of sit and relax and open my heart and fill it full of love and joy and good, kind energy. My heart chakra I use a lot. It's my throat chakra that I need to work on, which is what I'm doing here. By being open and honest to you. And then you bring people into that and take them through mindfulness and through a meditation. And it can be very healing for people, including myself. I usually feel very calm and very light and full of good energy when I'm done. I'm also ready to go to sleep because, it takes a bit to lead a meditation, but I usually feel pretty good. And the last thing that I'll leave you with, if you've been listening to any of these, the last one I did was You Can Heal. That journey has continued. I have a lot of new freedom from fear, from trauma responses, and from things that would come up that would hold me back. I put myself out there now. I'm open. I'm vulnerable. I tell people what I think. I exercise my voice. That doesn't mean I tell people off. I do it in a nice way, but I can be myself. I was talking with a friend of mine today who has also been through some similar things that I have and also has done therapy work. And we were talking about the various facades we put on or masks where we learned that we needed to be what we thought other people wanted us to be. And like a chameleon, I would change and just be the way that I thought you wanted me to be, because that way you would like me. And I wanted everyone to like me. That was the number one thing I wanted. I wanted everyone to be happy and everyone to like me. And oddly enough, if you talk to some people, they don't want you to do that because you don't know what they want. The story in my head and what you actually want are two completely different things. And until you can find someone that you can be that honest with and that vulnerable with, then you're like, oh, that's not what you wanted? And they're like, no, not at all. And you come across as fake. And it's taken a lot of work not to do that. And I still use my tools. But it's so much easier to just be myself. And then it's just varying degrees of how much I'm willing to share and how vulnerable I want to be with you. And that's just boundary work. But I cannot tell you the amount of freedom that gives me and serenity that it gives me. So I think I'm going to wrap this up, and I just want to leave you with some thoughts. So be nice to others. Treat others like you want to be treated. We're only here on this planet for a little bit of time, so there's no reason we can't be nice to each other. And for the people that drive me nuts that I don't like, I at least tolerate them, and I try and be nice. I can be civil. And if you think you're not loved, just remember that I love you. Namaste.